The number of phone calls, and I'm sure that my noble brothers, Abu Hakim, Abu Idris, Abu Fudail and others will agree. A lot of the time you get phone calls from brothers and sisters who have problems in their homes, problems with their children, problems with their daughters, with their sons. I can't, my daughter won't listen to me. My son has a device, he won't let go of it. He won't even tell me what he's looking at. He locks the device. And he's behaving strangely. And he doesn't want to, for Fajr I wake him, he doesn't want to pray. How long has this been going on? Well, for about 2-3 years. When was the last time that you took him to a dars? Well, I take him to a conference once a year. That's the answer I sometimes hear. In fact, that is the answer I hear more often than we should. That you block your children from the durus in the masjid, as-Salafi. And then when the problems begin to occur in your homes, you want a quick solution. The solution is not going to be easy now. Because you've cultivated your children upon not seeking knowledge, not giving value to ilm. Ilm is cheap. What is value? The GCSE. What is value? The school homework. What is value? History, World War I, World War II, British colonization. That's what they learn. English literature, Shakespeare. You give value to that because you want your children to get A grades or whatever it is these days. That's what you want for your children. So you focus upon that. Then when the problems begin, your son comes home with a shaved beard. Your sister, or your daughter rather, she doesn't want to wear the hijab. And they don't want to practice their religion. Then you wonder why. Because you don't bring them. They don't feel a part of ilm and knowledge. They don't come to these gatherings of knowledge where their hearts can be lifted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just by attending, may guide their hearts and strengthen them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the qudra to do that. But if you don't take the means, if you don't take those steps, then you've got no one to blame but yourselves. Yes, a few hundred people will come to a dars these days in this masjid. Every dars, a few hundred people will turn up. Friday, maybe up to 600, 700, 800 people. It's possible. But that's nothing compared to the number of Muslims that are out there. If you have in your mind, or if you have inculcated into the minds of your sons and your daughters that secular knowledge and secular education is more important than the deen of Allah, then don't be surprised when the chickens come home to roost. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when your children come home and she's pregnant. Wal-iyadhu billah. Or your son has found a boyfriend. Wal-iyadhu billah. Because that has happened. Because if they're not getting their education here, they're getting their education somewhere else. Indoctrination takes place whether you like it or not. And you don't have the ilm, nor do you have the experience, nor do you have, the knowledge or the foundation to really, truly cultivate your children. Because if you did, then many of you wouldn't be going through the problems that you are going through. You even hear of cases where a brother or sister will say, we homeschooled our children for 7 years throughout secondary school and they got their GCSEs and so on. But they don't want anything to do with Islam. Did you bring them to the durus? No. Why not? Because we were home educating. What were you educating them in? Well, we had a tutor for English, we had a tutor for maths, we have a tutor for science, we had a tutor for this, we have a tutor for that. So who's teaching them tahara? Who's teaching them salah? Who's teaching them purification of the soul? Who's teaching them about strengthening the heart? Who's teaching them the tafsir of the Quran? Who's teaching them the seerah and the life of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Who's teaching them all of that? This is what many in our community fail to understand. So what they like to do is to stick their heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening up until it happens. And then they just have to live with what they've got after that. Well, alhamdulillah, if I can keep them away from homosexuality, it's all right. So it becomes, bring it down to the lowest common denominator. Well, he's still a Muslim. Imagine that. How's your son? MashaAllah, he's still a Muslim. So by the skin of his teeth, he's still a Muslim. And that's what you have pride in? Being a Muslim is default. It's the default position. Just like you're standing on this earth. That's the default position. So when a person says, well, he's still got his Islam, does he pray? Well, I'm encouraging him. Does she wear hijab? Well, it's slackening a bit, but, she's decided now that she's going to cover herself at least from the shoulders to her feet. And then we'll move on from there. Because when you drop things and you judge progress on the basis of the lowest common denominator, alhamdulillah, my son's not homosexual. You take pride in that because you know that there are a lot of things that he's failing in. So now you're trying to just stop him from falling into, between the gaps, into things that are even more evil than what he is already engaged in. He listens to music, shaves his beard. But alhamdulillah, he's not a Christian, he's not an atheist. Yet. What's going to happen to his children? So yes, conferences are good. And they lift the souls and they lift the hearts of the people and make you feel good. But if you are abandoning the durus and you don't bring your children to the classes, then you'll see the consequences of that in years to come. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you. Allah preserve you, because I don't want to see that. And none of us want to see that in our children. Because there are people who have been coming to the durus for decades in this masjid. And they are the best of the families in our community. Doesn't mean that wrong things didn't happen in their lives. Allah tries people. But the best of this community and the most noble of this community and the best children in this community are the children of those who have been attending the durus for decades. Even if they have come from the other side of the town. It takes them 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's nothing. When you look at the vastness of the United States of America, that sometimes for a single dars in Germantown Masjid to the dars of our brother Sheikh Anwar Wright or Sheikh Hassan al-Somali, they will travel 2 miles twice a week. So 2 hours twice a week. Twice a week, 2 hours, and then 2 hours back home again, just to catch the dars. And you find brothers coming to the durus of Abu Hakim or Abu Idris in this masjid. And they will travel from West London every week for the dars. That's a 2-hour drive. To sit for what? To sit for an hour. The time that they sit is less than it takes for them to travel to the dars. I heard not long ago that there were brothers traveling from East London to Bradford, Masjid al-Sunnah, for the dars of our brother Shaykh Abu Iyad. Now, from what I recall, because I haven't made that journey in a long time from London to Bradford, but it's somewhere in the region of 3 to 4 hours to go and sit on a Friday evening for 1 hour in a dars of Abu Iyad. That is not to say that we are raising our brothers to the level of the A'imma or the great Muhaddithin. No. The issue is what here? That if you can benefit from a hadith, if you can benefit from knowledge, if you can be reminded and you get rewarded for every single mile that you've traveled or footstep that you've taken, then who would turn their nose up at that, instead sit home and watch EastEnders? I don't know what they watch these days. I'm thinking about that 20, 30 years ago. Whatever they watch. Right? That's sitting at home and watching that garbage is better than coming and sitting in a dars, bringing your wife, bringing your children, and then on the way home grabbing something, a coffee or a cake, and you see the smile in your children's faces as you reward them for sitting patiently and benefiting from the dars. And you see the smile and the good countenance on your wife's face because you've brought her to a dars, and then you've rewarded them. You've spent from your wealth, because that is the best dinar and the best dirham that you can spend is upon your family. Look at how much reward there is in that, just in that one action of goodness for your children, goodness to your wife, goodness to your families. You know, I'm going to keep saying this because I know that it has an effect. Because people benefit. There are people sitting here today who've come down from Manchester, and I recognize your faces. For what? Is it because they're related to me? There's no blood relation. Is it because they're from the same country that I was born in? Not even that. They're not from Pakistan. Why have they come then? They have come for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be reminded and to benefit and to meet their brothers for the sake of Allah, for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer their dua, inshaAllah. So if they can travel from Manchester for 2 hours, from Cheetham Hill to here, maybe 2.5 hours, for a half-hour khutbah, yet we can't travel 10 minutes from our houses to a dars on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday. You're given all these opportunities. So you say, I can't do Mondays. Can't come to the dars. Come Tuesday then. Can't do Tuesdays, I work Mondays and Tuesdays. Come Wednesday then. Wednesday I'm going to go and see my mum. Come Thursday then. Thursday I'm doing homework with the kids. Come Friday then. Friday I got to watch the movies. What do you want me to do for you, Akhi? What is it that you want me to do for you? If you're blind and wandering in heedlessness, then what can I do for you? Reflect and ponder over your lives, because I've seen how my own children have grown up, and I've seen my life before my eyes. 30 years in the da'wah, gone like that. Ask Abu Hakim. Ask Abu Hakim and the likes of Abu Iyad. 1992 or 91, when we first met each other, seems like yesterday. Wallahi. Sitting in the house of Shaykh Rabi with Abu Hakim and with 1 or 2 other brothers back in 96 or 97, seems like yesterday. So you say, oh, remember that time? When was that, Ustad? That was in 95. 95, I was born in 2002. But to us, it's gone so fast that looking back at it now, and you think, these children that we raised with our own hands, that they have children. We are great-grandparents now. Abu Hakim, myself, Abu Idris, grandparents. Because that's what happens. And before you know it, the opportunities that you had, you lost them because you didn't listen. Good, your son has got A-levels and a degree. What does he do with it? He works in a finance house. MashaAllah. He memorized half the Quran and you put him in a riba-based finance house or in a bank. He's clean-shaven, musbil, tight trousers. Prays once a day, but at least he prays all 3 prayers that once a day. So when he comes home, he prays Fajr before he leaves. Then he prays Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib at Maghrib time. But he has to go to bed early, so he might as well just pray Isha as well. I've heard stories like this. And you think to yourself, you're proud of that? Or at least he prays. Even if he doesn't pray on time, at least he prays. That's the argument. How do you know Allah's going to accept that prayer outside of its time? Because from the conditions of the prayer, it must be prayed within its time. But you find people with that type of mentality. who have been coming to the conferences year in and year out, and their children are like that. But they're proud. They even have pictures on their social media. Here's me and my son. Son is clean shaven. Used to come to the masjid. Tight suit on. Tie on. I'm proud of my son. He's got a managerial role in some company. To me, that's humiliation, ya akhi. That is humiliation. Your son is dressed in a manner that is hated by Allah, displeasing to Allah, opposition to the Sunnah, and you're just proud that you're leaning against his Mercedes with you and your son because he took a riba loan and went to university, or your daughter even. Waliyadu billah. What has happened to our communities that we have reached that point? Wallahu musta'an. Allahu musta'an. Finish upon that, inshaAllah.